I would like to go ahead and welcome you to the Monday, May 10th work session, and we will be discussing TSPLOST projects. So, Mr. Muhammad Rauf, if you would come forward and do an initial presentation, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council and Mayor. So we are here to talk about the TSPLOST renewal project list. So my goal for today, the only goal I've got, is to finish my presentation. And that was a joke. So yes, the goal for today for us is to come to a financially constrained project list for the TSPLOST 2 renewal. So we'll be presenting a lot of information, and I have a list of what we'd be talking about. So just some background for the public that may be listening. We have talked about it so much in the past, so I know you know this already, but just for the public that are watching. So the Fulton County, with the approval of a majority of the citizens, majority of the cities representing majority of the citizens, they are moving forward with the referendum for a TSPLOST renewal beyond April of 2022 for a referendum in November 21 this year. So we've had a draft project list that we have been working on for the past few months. And as we defined before, that the draft project list came out of the adopted plans that we have, such as the Transportation Master Plan, the North Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Plan, and our Bike Ped Master Plan. We also did a survey of the citizens, a couple months ago, and asking them what type of projects they would want to see on the TSPLOST list, and if they had any specific project ideas. We got good feedback from the public as well, and there is some staff recommendations on that on the big master list as well. So this has been discussed at the March 24th and the April 28th committee meetings. So today's presentation includes the master list that I just talked about. It has about 70, actually over 70 projects on it. So we gotta cut it down to a reasonable amount of projects. Just making it a financially constrained list based on the projected revenue for the city of Roswell. So we'll also be discussing we'll also be doing an add delete exercise. So staff gave mayor and council on last Friday, asking them information about if any projects they wanted to add or delete beyond their initial scoring. So we have a list that shows all the council's average scoring. It is sorted with highest to the lowest, and we just went down that list and draw a red line. That's where the projected funding runs out. So the request for you since last Friday was to let us know if there is any projects that you wanted to move from below the red line to above it so it could get funded, or take off a project that was listed on top of that list and push it down. And we also gotta clarify certain other things. For your information, there is some new and some modified requests here, and there's some staff suggestions for your consideration as well. So all that is included for today. So again, like I said, the goal for today is to finalize a financially constrained project list based on the projected revenue. And it's extremely important now because this is really our last opportunity, because the next step is in the next 2-3 days is for staff to, whatever list you finalized tonight, or reduced list, hopefully a financially constrained list, we want to send it out to the public on an online survey and get their feedback before the committee meeting in May, which is May 26th. So we only have 16 days to send the public survey out, receive the input, summarize, and get it ready for the committee meeting on the 26th. So we wanna get your input tonight. One thing we mentioned before, all projects, all 70 projects that made it to the list, whether from the plans or the citizens' suggestions, they're all good projects. We want to do them sooner or later. If they don't get funded with this funding opportunity, there will always be other future funding opportunities. So we'll have the list, going forward for other opportunities. So here is some funding breakdown. So the Roswell's share, based on its population, out of the overall revenue collection for the next 5 years is for the Tier 1, as stated by Fulton County, $73.3 million. So this number went up by a couple $million since the last conversation we had on committee. Fulton County just revised their numbers, and I'm just glad it went up, not down. So that we were good there. So the next thing we have on the slide is a few items that we are strongly recommending for the council to consider, including spending the TSPLOST money on. So we have we're suggesting $3 million for program management. So that is, we've had that for the TSPLOST 1 as well for the last 5 years, and where we use it, so it's basically an external help available to staff, which we use on an ongoing basis to basically, if there is any additional smaller requests as we go, there is construction inspection that may be needed. There is, design right-of-way construction issues come up all the time, which our main consultant may have an opinion to solve those issues a certain way. We could always go to our TSPLOST program manager, for a second opinion, for more expertise to pull in. A couple of main examples, other than the day-to-day stuff that we deal with them, is like the bridge aesthetics effort. If you remember, it was a major effort, came out of the blue, and we were able to use the program management to pull it off with a very strict deadline from GDOT, if you remember those efforts. Say if the public wants to see some renderings of a project, those are the type of the things that are generally not included in the regular project scope when we hire a consultant, but all these additional things, that's where they come from. The program management is the source for us to provide all that information. So we are recommending $3 million for that. And also, please keep in mind that for TSPLOST 1, we had 6 projects, okay? But for TSPLOST 2, we'll probably have maybe 20 projects based on whatever you decide to do. So that's a lot more, a lot more work and a lot more help needed. And we'll still be working on TSPLOST 1 projects as we move into future years. A couple of our big projects are yet to start construction. So we want to keep all that in mind, that it will be doing a lot of work in the next few years. So the next request, the next recommendation is the $2 million for the additional staffing. So, we have a certain amount of staff, and we deliver a certain amount of work every year. For TSPLOST 1, we didn't ask for any additional staffing, and that hurt us. So we wanna, for the efficiency of the program delivery and timely delivery of the program and a cost-effective delivery of the program, we believe that it's gonna be necessary to have the additional resources. So we are thinking 2 field inspectors and 2 project managers, and these positions would be funded by TSPLOST, and once the funding runs out or we don't need them anymore, the positions go away. These are not permanent positions, these are going to be temporary positions. We may be hiring full-time or part-time, and we'll only bring them on board on an as-needed basis. We're not going to bring them in on day one and keep them for as long as the funding is available. We only bring them in when we need them. And of course, any of such decisions, the city council gets involved, and you get to hear another justification at the time of why we need it and the timing of these requests. So the next thing we've got on the list is the $5 million for the TSPLOST 1 projects contingency. So that's another one where we're making this is a strong recommendation from staff because we know we are going to need it, and we are going to and we briefed you about maybe 3 to 4 months ago at a committee meeting on our Big Creek Parkway Phase 2 project, where we requested your permission to go out to public, and we are in the process of doing that. At the time, we also notified you that there is some funding shortfalls in the project, and when we bring you the public input back, at the same time, we'll know enough, and we're gonna need to have that conversation about that funding shortfall. So because it's not gonna be an easy conversation, because it's a large project, and funding shortfall means we're talking millions of dollars. So this number that you see here is basically for that. And if it makes it easy and cleaner, what we could say here is rather than calling it TSPLOST 1 project contingency, we could call it Big Creek Parkway Phase 2 project contingency, because that's what this is for. As of today, we're not aware of any other TSPLOST 1 project needing any additional money. So this is for the Big Creek Parkway Phase 2. And I can go into more details if you want to. So what we did was, so if you look at the top of the slide, it says 73.3 total projected revenue for the city of Roswell over 5 years for Tier 1. And the bottom half of the slide shows you $10 million worth of staff recommendations. So the list you're about to see or was shared with you last week, that includes projects worth 63 point something million. So we took off the $10 million off the top to create that list. So, well, here is the list. So this is now, so what we shared with you last Friday, that's a master list sorted with the average of the elected officials' ranking. So the top one is index number 6, project number 6. The average of all of your rankings was 4.857, and it's the Riverside Road Corridor Improvement Project. So it's sorted with that ranking. So I'm just gonna go over these projects very quickly because you see a red line at the bottom, so anything above would stay funded if you approve everything as is. So I just want to quickly go over that, and the rest of the list is still there on the next slides, but that's the unfunded piece, so I'm not going to go over all those projects. We'll only talk about the projects we need to talk about. So like I said, the first one is the Riverside Road Corridor. So we are already working on a concept and public involvement. You gave us funding for survey, public involvement, concept development a couple of years ago, so that's in process. It would be ready to start the design in a few months' time. So this would be the money for right-of-way and construction, and this is a corridor improvement project. The next one is the Dogwood Road Multi-Use Trail. So this was the initial list, and it says Dogwood Road Multi-Use Trail from Riverside to Grimes Bridge. So this was a project, you ranked it high enough to be there, but if you remember at the committee last couple weeks ago, you added to the scope of project number 1, which is just 2 down. So Grimes Bridge Road, Dogwood, Old Dogwood, so you added scope to that. So that's why this project number 8, the Dogwood Multi-Use Trail, could become part of that. So that frees up that $1.4 million number that's written in front of the project 8. So the next one is project number 10, the Old Alabama Road Multi-Use Trail from Market Boulevard to Holcomb Woods Parkway. So that's the one that crosses Holcomb Bridge, and that's been a request for decades to somehow improve safety for pedestrians and bicycles crossing the Holcomb Bridge in that area. So the next one we mentioned already, so Grimes Bridge Road Corridor Study, that was the initial title of the project, but we modified based on your input from the committee a couple of weeks ago. So we added Dogwood Road, Old Dogwood Road, corridor improvements. So of course the cost of this one before was $5.4 million. Now the estimated cost is like $10.5 million. And then the next project is one of the recreational and parks project. That's the Chattahoochee River Parks multi-use trail rehabilitation project. So, I think Director Jeff Leatherman should be here to answer any questions on that one. The next one, the project number 3, is the Holcomb Bridge Road median islands. We're talking various locations, and I have a slide on that one to explain it in a little bit more detail. The next one is the Norcross Street bridge replacement. You know, that's the next bridge we need to replace in the city in the next, well, sooner the better. The next one is the project number 11, Old Alabama Road multi-use trail from Holcomb Woods Parkway to Big Creek Park entrance. That's a very good connection, you know, connects it to the park. Next one is project number 5, the Pine Grove Road corridor improvements. The one from Lake Charles to Cobb County ranked higher, but we have a slide for that one to clarify it further, but this is the one that was ranked higher. That's why it's here. Number 48 is another request from Recreational and Parks Department. This is the Big Creek Park Boulevard boardwalk replacement. And then the next one is the Nesbitt Ferry Road gap filling project for the sidewalk. And this is also yellow because I got more information on this one. On a slide, we have a request from one of our neighboring cities to partner. Next one is the number 46, the Holcomb Bridge Road multi-use trail. It's along Holcomb Bridge from Martin Landings to Eves Road within the public right-of-way. And we have more information on this one, so we have a slide for it, so you'll get to see it again. Old Alice Extension from Sun Valley to Old Alice Road. This is another one where we got more information for your consideration later on. So far, this is the funded list above this red line totaling about $63 million. And next we'll get into the rest of the discussion. So I just wanted to say one more thing about the project cost. You know, so we do not have much of a defined scope for pretty much all of the projects listed on the full list. So these are based on some, you know, reasonable assumptions, some past history of the similar projects that we do. So, and we haven't gotten public input on any of these. So depending upon, you know, for more work when we actually start working on these projects, when we get public input, seeing what the citizens would want to see, you know, these costs may go up or down. There is some contingency built in, but still, you know, these are just based on very rough scope. So this is now the unfunded portion of the list. I'm not going to go over this whole thing, but the 2 yellow boxes that you see here, I got slides on those, so we need to discuss them more. There is more information for your consideration. And actually for the Jones Road Bridge, I'd say that it's up there and we turned it yellow, but that's one of the things we may not need in the next 5 years, so we're not going to recommend that to be funded, but since we had, you know, colored it yellow, I just wanted to touch base on it. We have an opportunity to work with Cobb County for a financial partnership like we are doing with them for the Willio Road Bridge, so this one shouldn't be a problem, and we will tackle with it outside TSPLOST conversations. The next one is the Pine Grove. That's the piece closer to Canton Street, and it's turned yellow. We got more information on it in the slides coming up. So this is more of the unfunded portion of the list. So the TSPLOST 1 program project contingency we talked about. So that's turned yellow because it was ranked low, but I already explained why we need it. So we don't necessarily have another slide for it, but I just wanted to make sure you knew this is where it ranked, but staff is recommending to fund it as requested. The next yellow box is the Historic Gateway project. We got a slide for that coming up. So this is still the unfunded portion of the list. And this is I think we're towards the end of the list. So the 2 projects at the bottom, they are turned yellow. These are new requests. They were not on the initial list. So that's why we turned them yellow, and I got slides for them later on in the presentation. So this is just a map. So everything you saw on the list that was above that red line is just shown on this map. You could see, you know, where they're located generally. So some additional information on one of the project that I mentioned. So our project number 3 was the Holcomb Bridge Road median island. So it scored pretty good, and it is above that red line. So it is funded as of now, but we just wanted to clearly mention the scope of this project. So we're not talking about a continuous median along Holcomb Bridge. There is no room to do that. What we are talking about with the funding, I think it listed $540,000. So that's an estimate based on 2 to 4 medians, about 50 to 150 feet long and 8 to 10 feet wide, wherever they fit basically within the existing pavement or the existing right-of-way. We're not assuming any right-of-way takes. We're not assuming any widening. We're just talking about wherever there is room, we put these medians there with those dimensions roughly. And with those dimensions, all it's going to have is low-rise landscaping, low-rise bushes. So this is a picture of what we've got on Holcomb Bridge by the 400 interchange. This was the westbound through lane project. So this is similar to what it could look like, landscaping-wise and size-wise, maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but 2 to 4 medians through the stretch that's shown here on the map. So the next one is the Pine Grove Road. So the only confusion here is this is one of that project that we have gotten requests for over a decade. So just because of some confusion, the ranking, the average ranking from council scored the portion that's in blue, closer to Cobb County, ranked much higher, and the portion that's closer to Canton Street ranked very low, and that's why it's below the red line. So we want to, I think some of you assume that it's going to get funded as part of the FY22, but that was, we had a request in there, but only for survey and public involvement and concept, not for design or construction. So we know Pine Grove is a good corridor. We want to do this. So the suggestion, what you could do here is move the red part up on the list as well, and either keep the blue piece or move it down the red line, whatever you want to do with that. So that's one of the clarification we had. So now we're going to get into the add delete. So here are the requests we got since last Friday. So we appreciate you taking the time to get it over to us. We just wanted to just somehow get to a conclusion on a financially constrained list. So we said we'll just use what our finance department has very successfully done.
Excuse me, Mr. Ralph. Did all of council respond to your request?
I got 6 out of 7 elected officials.
Who did not respond? Mr. Ralph, who did not respond?
Councilmember Zapata, I did not.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
So, Mayor, I was going to request that however we want to do this, but what we could do with your permission is if you want to, kind of somehow give us a decision on each one of these requests, like they do for the budget process, add, delete. If you're okay with that, I think it would be much easier. So what we could do is we could talk about, so the first request from 4 council members was to add the Pine Grove, part of the Pine Grove that's closer to Canton Street, to add. So that, has a net impact of $6.9 million. So whether we want to add it or not, we would just want to have that decision now to move forward.
I'm a little reluctant to start slicing and dicing these projects into smaller projects or larger projects.
Okay.
Please give us your description of what the project is and who voted to either bump it up over the red line or bump it down? If you could help me with that.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about each one as we go through it.
Okay, so I'll start with the first one now. That's the Pine Grove Road, so that's the piece between Lake Charles to Canton Street. So that, like I just mentioned, that got a very low average scoring from the council because 3 council members assumed that the project was gonna get funded as part of FY22. But that was a request from staff to do concept of the project for $300,000, and even that is listed in the unfunded list on the budget process. So now 4 council members are suggesting to add it above the red line, which would mean to fund it at a cost of $6.9 million.
Just for clarification, I'd like to get a show of hands with Councilmember Tizer, Judy Palermo, and Hall, if you still stand by the way you submitted this. Councilmember Tizer?
On just this one, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that I stand behind wanting to do all of Pine Grove. You know, it's a very highly used road. It's got power poles, you know, right at curves. You can open it up to golf cart traffic if you do it right. I think it's an important part of our future, and I think opening both pieces of it makes sense to me.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question first. Would it be possible for us to see the whole list and then go through?
I'm just asking you if you're still standing by this assessment at this point, or if you are wavering because there's new information.
No, I stand by this one.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Palermo?
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So I strongly believe we need to improve all of Pine Grove, not just half of it. But I do have a clarifying question, and my clarifying question is, so I think without a doubt, for safety reasons, for so many different residents living off Pine Grove, et cetera, we absolutely need to get the wide sidewalks of the multi-use trail all the way down Pine Grove. But I guess my question is regarding, this is not just for the multi-use paths, but it's also for corridor improvements. And I want to understand that a little more, because what I want to make sure is that we're not doing anything that's actually just going to encourage more cut-through traffic from our neighboring county. I want to make sure that it is keeping the feel and, again, just making it much safer for pedestrians and residents that live there.
Absolutely. So when we talk about corridor improvement projects, we're not talking about widening the roads. What we are talking about is, you know, pedestrians and bicycle amenities as, you know, suggested by the public at a later time, you know, when we do public involvement. We also talk about the intersections. We look at all the major intersections along a corridor. There's some known issues along Pine Grove, and we have, you know, crash data, we have speed data. So all that gets looked at, so some of the intersections could get improved as part of these corridor improvement projects as well. So that's a very rough scope at this point, and it gets defined if it becomes a project and we do public involvement. We take a deeper look at the problems that exist, like speeding, like any crash problems at some of the intersections. So, Mayor, I would just...
Councilmember Judy?
Yes, Mayor, I stand by my addition of this to the list.
Thank you. Mr. Ralph, what I'd like to go through is, because you did enter in some new information on these, I just want to make sure this list is still solid with the folks that voted for it. So what I'd like to do is move through this list, then we'll move on from there. But some folks may have changed their mind, okay, and I want to make sure that we've recorded that. So please go on to number 2.
Absolutely. So before I do that, Mayor, just 2 more things. So after the add-delete list, we have several other clarifications from staff that I mentioned at the bigger list above that one, and Rob and Dave. So as we go, as a decision is being made, they can update a spreadsheet, for us to know what the total cost is going to be at the end.
Is there additional information on these 7 items?
No.
Okay, I want to get through these 7,
Okay.
and then we'll move on. So, number 2,
So item number 2 suggested, it was an suggestion by 3 council members for project number 39, which is the Hogwallow Creek Trail project that connects Oxbow Road to Norcross Street. The cost of that project is going to be $2.45 million.
thank you. Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. So on this one, in speaking with some of the folks from Bike Roswell, et cetera, if they had one choice of a trailway, this would be the one. When I look at 2.45 million, I get a little bit more concerned now that I've seen the rest of the list. So on this one, I have to reserve my judgment here until I see where we are in total. I'd like to do it, but there's some other things that might be more critical.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, Mayor, I would like to see one of the Creekway trails funded in the TSPLOST. I think there's a lot of advantages and benefits, and would like to have one example that we can go forward with. And as Councilmember Tizer said, this is one that has a lot of support. I again would like to see possibly looking at the total 73.3 million, minus what we need to take out, the approximately 10 million. And kind of back out of that what the top priorities are and how much money, what the funds are that we have remaining before we, start adding some back into it.
Thank you. Councilmember Judy.
Yes, Mayor, I stand behind this addition.
If we can move on to number 3.
Yes, so number 3, request came from 2 council members to add project number 20, which is Woodstock Road Multi-Use Trail. It's the concept is to add a multi-use trail on one side of Woodstock Road from Canton Street all the way to Highway 92, and the cost of that one is roughly $7 million.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Yes, with the advent of the new Crabapple Middle School and the amount of schools on that street, I stand behind it as a safety issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Palermo.
Yeah, I see this as a beneficial project, given the multiple schools and churches and park there, and as Councilmember Hall mentioned, a large new school being built right now. And in addition to that, the chance to really try to connect our hub and spokes, because this would give the opportunity to be connecting Hardscrabble area and even down to Pine Grove, which again, I think we all hope to see get built. So I think this is a solid project among many others. I do want to mention too, with Hogwallow Creek Trail, though my name's not on there, what I would be very curious from staff to see is a better, clearer picture of exactly what that would look like.
Excuse me, Councilmember Palermo, we're talking about item number 4?
But you didn't give me the
Or
opportunity.
3?
But you didn't give me the opportunity to talk about number 2.
Well, you didn't vote on that one. I'm just getting an
But I would
update
like
on
the
the
opportunity-
folks that weighed in on these issues, whether it was yay or nay, and they're still standing by it.
Okay.
So the serial number 4, Mayor Henry, the request came from you to add project number 51, the Jones Road Bridge Replacement project at $3.43 million.
And thank you. I still stand by that. My thinking is that we've got some other funding opportunities for that, and I wanted to look at TSPLOST projects that would have a broad base of appeal. Number 5?
Number 5, another request from Mayor Henry to add project number 69, the bridge and guardrail maintenance. And we didn't have a cost for this one because this is a routine yearly maintenance item for us, but we still put it on the list because it is eligible for TSPLOST funding. But if we have to suggest a number, we would recommend $1 million out of the TSPLOST funding for it.
Thank you, Mr. Ralph, and I still stand by that. I think that we need to look at bridge and guardrail maintenance seriously, since many folks on council weren't aware. Previously, in years past, the state of Georgia has provided the maintenance for bridges. The state of Georgia no longer provides that, so I think that that's a serious concern. So on to number 6.
Number 6 was a request from Councilmember Wilsey to add project number 45, the River Eaves Elementary School Trail, at a cost of $700,000. So that's the trail that connects the River Eaves Elementary School to Eaves Circle. And that's a good connectivity to the river, and there's an existing old roadbed, and it gives us the safe routes to school initiative as well.
Councilmember Wilsey, do you still stand by that decision?
Yes, Mayor, I do. I think it is a great, as Director Ralph said, great connectivity project. It was highly rated among council, and I think would be very much appreciated by the community, and supports the bike ped master plan as well. And I think it's a cost that might be something that we could, slide in if there's, a certain amount of funds remaining.
Thank you. Item number 7.
Number 7 is another request from Councilmember Wilsey to add project number 14, which is Holcomb Bridge Road multi-use trail at $1.6 million. So that's the gap from Boston Market to the Martin Landings entrance.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilsey, do you still stand behind that?
Yes, Mayor, I do. This segment of the trail seems to be like the missing link. If we are doing the part from Old Alabama to Market Boulevard, and then from the entrance of Martin's Landing to Eaves Road, this seems to be a very critical piece that helps connect the communities to the higher commercial areas, and also provides the link to the Greenway and to the river. So yes, I do stand behind that.
Thank you. So we've established that out of the 7 items, the folks that have weighed in on these still stand behind their decisions, with the exception of number 2. And I would say that Councilmember Tizer and Councilmember Wilsey do seek some further information and guidance on that. But the other ones still stand as solid recommendations from council. So now would you please move forward?
Thank you, Mayor. So there is just more of the same list. So serial number 8, request from Mayor Henry to delete project number 48, the Big Creek Park Boardwalk Replacement project.
Thank you. And what I would like to say with that is this is a TSPLOST project. It's not a Recreation and Parks SPLOST. And I think that we've got other funding that would be very appropriate for the boardwalk. I did recommend that we pursue the River Park, but the Big Creek Boardwalk replacement, to me, was a little bit of a stretch on a transportation project. So I still stand by that.
Request number 9 came from Councilmember Palermo and Councilmember Hall to delete project number 3. That's the Holcomb Bridge Road median islands at a cost of $540,000. And their suggestion was to fund it with FY22, the conversation we were going to have in the next meeting. So not necessarily a delete, but just a different funding source for that one.
Councilmember Hall.
Yes, Mayor, I stand by that.
Thank you. Councilmember Palermo.
This recommendation came from the East Roswell Economic Development Committee, and I think it's important that we show that that is a priority, and that's why I feel instead of waiting for a November ballot item in a much longer-term process, I think we absolutely should be funding it this fiscal year, and hopefully we'll have support tonight.
The next one, request number 10 came from Councilmember Hall to delete project number 72, the TSPLOST 1 contingency, which we costed at $5 million. And then Mayor Henry and Councilmember Wilsey, I think your input suggested to keep it in. So we just wanted to keep this together on one slide, so it's listed here. And I think I already explained what that was for.
Thank you, Mr. Ralph. Let me just get a clarification on, okay, number 9 was delete Holcomb Bridge Road median islands?
Yes.
And Councilmember Palermo, I misunderstood your statement.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
So I'm requesting we delete this from the TSPLOST list because I'd actually like to see the city invest in this as a capital improvement with tonight's first hearing of the budget.
Thank you, thank you. I misunderstood what your comment was, so I'm sorry. On number 10?
Number 10 is a request from Councilmember Hall to delete number 72, which is the TSPLOST 1 contingency, and Mayor Henry, your input and Councilmember Wilsey's input specifically suggested to keep the $5 million for TSPLOST.
Councilmember Hall?
Yes, Mayor, I'd stand by that.
And Mayor, I had actually made that same request as well.
You have not been recognized. I will say that I approve, I still stand by my decision. Councilmember Wilsey?
Yes, Mayor, I stand by this.
Thank you. Let's go on to number 11.
Number 11 is a request from Councilmember Palermo and Councilmember Hall to reduce the program management down to $1.4 million. And it was really originally $3 million because the other 2 was for staffing. So we're talking about a difference of $1.6 million. And I already explained why we need the program management.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall?
Thank you, Mayor, I stand by that. I also feel there's timing and a time span involved so that we can better effectively use the TSPLOST dollars for other items.
I apologize. I had a hard time hearing you.
Sorry. I stand by it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Palermo?
Yes, I see that as the $5 million as a large request, and I think with some contingencies in there where I really want to make sure we're maximizing the amount of actual capital improvement and really improving transportation. So that's why I had requested to reduce this number and to delete number 10 to make sure we're really focused on new projects.
Excuse me, Councilmember Palermo, you didn't weigh in on number 10.
Did
I am just verifying the folks that weighed in on these issues, if they are still standing by those.
And I weighed in
And
as-
so, excuse me, so what we have after 11 issues is we still only have number 2 as being somewhat, Councilmember Tizer and Councilmember Wilsey are not as willing to commit to number 2 as they were in the past. So I just want to make sure, I'm trying to clarify here is we had council members weigh in on this. Information that they received after they went through this exercise, has their opinion changed? That's all I wanted to know at this point. So, Mr. Ralph, if you'd move forward, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the next one, these are some clarifications from staff. So Nesbitt Ferry Road corridor. So we have been approached many times in the past, and yet again, as part of the TSPLOST effort by our neighboring city of Johns Creek, they are requesting a corridor improvement project. And what they are thinking is, some operational improvements like intersection improvements and bike ped elements. They're not thinking or talking about widening the road. So what they're requesting is about up to a $1 million commitment from City of Roswell. So if you remember, what we have on our list above the red line, meaning funded list, is a project which fills some known gaps on Nesbitt Ferry at a cost of $1.4 million. So you have the option here, for a very high scored project, rather than using the city's $1.4 million and fill sidewalk gaps. Partner with the city of Johns Creek and pay them a maximum of $1 million and have the project, have the full corridor improvement. And just so you know, this is the map. To the left of the red line is City of Roswell. To the right is City of Johns Creek. And the full stretch of Nesbitt Ferry up to the Mount Pisgah Church property is in the City of Roswell. The full width of the right-of-way is in the City of Roswell. So they are offering to do a full corridor improvement. Their project cost is at $7 million, and all they are asking Roswell is up to $1 million. So that's an opportunity for the city to partner with Johns Creek for this project. So I'm gonna continue on the list. So the next project is the Old Alice extension. So this is one of the ones that made it above the red line. So it looks like it's funded at $16.7 million, but again, we got some new information here. So you could look at the map. We have existing Old Alice Road. That's the thinner red line that ends. And when we say the extension part, that's the extension that connects that dead end to the Sun Valley Drive project that we finished a couple of years ago. So that's the project. We've had a good partnership on this one with the North Fulton CID. We are partners on the design effort. They are paying 75%. The city is paying 25%. That effort is could be finishing pretty soon. So for the right-of-way and construction, the currently total estimate is the $16.7 million, and there is a federal grant opportunity for construction part only. So we already talked to the CID not too long ago, and at the May committee in a couple of weeks, we'll be bringing an item for you to support the North Fulton CID move forward with the application of that federal funding grant for the construction part of it, which we are roughly estimating at about $10 to $12 million. So what you could do as part of this TSPLOST effort is keep it funded at a full price of $16.7 million. And if the federal grant is approved going forward, that money would be free up, and the council at the time could make the decision what to do with the freed up money. Or what you could do is just fund maybe $6 million, to make sure the right-of-way is covered, and then so the project continues to move forward. So these are just a couple of options you have here. And so the next one up is the historic gateway project. So when you guys ranked, when the city council members and the mayor, when they put their scoring on the sheets, three of the council members, they made an assumption that the project is 100% funded, and they scored it at a 0. So that's why it got such a low average score of 2.286. So if you remember, within the last 18 to 24 months, with your approval, we requested $8 million grant from ARC, and that grant got approved. And it had required local matching funds of $2 million from the city of Roswell. So we're gonna need to pay that bill as we get closer to construction in about 2 years' time. And as we mentioned to you before when we were going through this application, that there is going to be other grant opportunities for us to go after for this $2 million of match money. So that still may happen. And if you choose to fund that $2 million with TSPLOST, and we also get another grant opportunity, this money could get freed up. Or you could choose not to fund it with TSPLOST, but the problem is if we can't find any other grant, then we are responsible for this $2 million about a couple of years from now. So this is a must-pay bill in 2 years, whether you fund it with TSPLOST or any other source, if we can't get any possibility of a grant. So the next one is the State Road 140 Holcomb Bridge Road, project number 46. So we wanted to, provide some clarification because the question keeps coming up. So this is actually above the red line, so it's a funded project with TSPLOST. As it shows, you all scored it high. So we're talking about a multi-use trail along Holcomb Bridge in the public right-of-way from Eves Road all the way to Martin Landing's entrance. So the total length is a little less than 1 mile. So the cost we have, the estimated cost we have is for a trail along the roadway. But you have an option here, since that question keeps coming up, option to skip this project along the roadway from TSPLOST. And whenever in the future, when 7 Branches project gets talked about with a different funding source, this could become maybe a parallel facility within 7 Branches. So it's just an option if you wanna consider that. Otherwise, the project that we have costed out is just a trail along Holcomb Bridge in the public right-of-way. So the next one up is a bridge replacement project. So project number 50, Oxbow Road, replacement at $3.2 million. It got a score of 2.4 from your ranking, so it did not make the cut. And this is, one of the bridges that is a must-pay bill within the next 5 years. So we wanted to make sure you knew that this is a must-pay bill. If you don't want to fund it with TSPLOST, it'll be a request, going forward very soon in the yearly budget. So the next one is this is a request from City of Milton that came in maybe a month ago. It's to improve 2 intersections on Cox Road, one at Etris and the other one at King Road. So the city boundary, it's just crazy here. So the red line is the city boundary, and the darker area is the City of Milton, the lighter gray is the City of Roswell. And the 2 circles are the project area, so the 2 intersections. So both of these intersections are technically in the City of Milton, so they are responsible. They are asking, and we have gotten many, many requests from Roswell residents over the years to, because there's some, crash issues, some dangerous movements there. So we have gotten many requests over the years, and our best answer to our citizens is that the intersection is in the City of Milton. It gets listed on that North Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Master Plan as well every time. So City of Milton reached out to us, and they offered a partnership opportunity with a 25% to 75% split, 25 for Roswell, 75% for them. So the total cost, the total match from Roswell could be up to $1 million for both intersections. They don't have a defined scope yet. Could be a roundabout, could be a traffic signal, turn lane improvements, so it just depends. But they are requesting 25% of the total, which could be around $1 million from Roswell for both intersections based on some rough estimates. So you have the option to partner with the City of Milton in this case, but these projects were not listed on our list initially. So that's all we had on all the lists and projects.
Thank you, Mr. Ruff. I'd like to open this up to council. Do you have any questions about the last items that Mr. Ruff presented? And he gave clarification on those items. Council? Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. So the next one up is, so as part of the IGA that the city needs to approve at the May committee in a couple weeks and the first June council meeting, we need to define what projects do we want to have on the tier 2 and tier 3 of the project list. So everything we talked so far, the list we talked about, financially constrained one, That's for the Tier 1 projected revenue. So we also have $12 million each for Tier 2 and Tier 3, which is just, just a projection. We may or may not get into the Tier 2 and Tier 3 projects, but we have to declare what projects would we do as part of the IGA. So what staff is recommending, like we did for TSPLOST 1, not put specific projects on that list, but just put project types like we have listed here: intersection improvements, bike path projects, bridge and guardrail replacement, and intelligent transportation system, like autonomous vehicles and all the high technology transportation projects. So this is just a suggestion to not do specific projects, but just do project buckets. And if revenues go into the high, and we are able to do Tier 2 and Tier 3 projects, we can come back to the city council to get specific project list.
Does council have any questions? Thank you. Please proceed.
The last slide for tonight is the upcoming steps. So like I think I mentioned that already. So we wanna make sure what the public has seen so far is just the project types. That happened 3 months ago. We went to the public, asked them what projects would they want to see and what they think of the project types. That's all they have seen. So we want to have hopefully a much reduced list tonight, a financially constrained list, and we want to go out to the public in the next 3 days with an online survey. We want to keep it up for as long as possible, but then be ready and come back to the committee on May 26th for your final approval to move to the June 14th council meeting for the approval of the list. And in parallel, hopefully we'll receive the IGA from Fulton County, and we can share it with you at the May 26th committee. But if not, we'll bring it directly to the June 14th council meeting, because that's like the absolute deadline for basically all cities to approve their IGAs with their financially constrained project lists by June 15th. So our, the most recent council meeting before that is June 14th. So that's what we are hoping to get these approvals at. And then if things move forward, we wanna do very extensive public education on the approved list by you, in the September-October timeframe, and then the referendum is anticipated on November 3rd of this year. So Mayor, that's all I had on the slides, if there's any other questions.
Well, thank you. You finally made it through your presentation.
Reached my goal.
So thank you so much. I am trying to think of a way that we can go through this and in a orderly way, given the time constraints. So what I'd like to suggest that we do is that, number one, we look at all of the items above the red line, if you can put those up for us. And first, I'd like to ask which of these items, and I'll ask for votes on each one and comments on each one, but I would like to know what your thoughts are on the items that need to remain. So looking at the first one on the list is, and I'll let you call them out, Mr. Ralph.
First one is the Riverside Road corridor improvement from Riverside Park to Old Alabama Road.
Thank you.
Corridor improvement.
Okay, so that's actually, I was numbering them differently. So actually, in my list, number one is actually number 6, correct? Yep. Yeah. Okay, so I would like to ask council if they would like to make comments, and then I'll call for a vote. I will go out to the public for comment, but I would rather do that at a point where you have an idea what we're doing. So I would like to get council to weigh in first. So Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. And this was actually a question on the Tier 2 and 3, if I can ask that question, when they were the 4 categories.
I'm sorry, did I not ask for council comments?
Af-
I apologize.
I might have missed it, I'm sorry. I was,
Okay, so we're going to back up. So, and we will go back to Tier 2 and Tier 3.
and my question just is, will the public have detail on these categories, or they just vote in general? And then the follow-up question is, if we have projects in here that ultimately get funded by another source, is there a problem because they were approved for TSPLOST, but yet we did them with other sources? And that's my only question on this.
You know, out of the list of 70, the total master list, maybe only 15, 20 would make it to the Tier 1 list tonight, hopefully. And all the remaining projects could become Tier 2, Tier 3 projects at a later time. So on the referendum, what the public would see, that the project list is not going to have any projects listed under Tier 2 or Tier 3. These are just buckets. And what that does is in the year 3 or year 4, when we know that projections are going to be more than Tier 1 projected revenues, we could do some Tier 2 projects. We could just do another one of these exercises with the public's help, and of course, let the council make the decision. So yeah, at this time, there's going to be no projects listed under these buckets.
Additional questions from council? Okay, so let's go back to items above the red line. So item number 6. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this before I ask for a vote? Councilmember Palermo.
So, Mr. Ralph, similar question as you heard earlier. I certainly fully support the bike bed focus to really make this connection. And I guess my question is, can you clarify what are the intersection improvements that you're envisioning? Because obviously I'm thinking that probably goes into a large amount of the dollar amount.
Yeah, so this is really the only project where I'm going to be able to answer that question better than the rest of them. So since the council, had the vision and you gave us money 2 years ago, 3 years ago for the survey concept and public involvement. So we have a concept, and this is an important corridor. So we decided not to go to public during COVID yet. So we haven't been to public yet, but we will, that's the plan. So yeah, so it's gonna, the trail for this project along the corridor is gonna integrate with the existing Recs and Parks facility. That's actually also a project listed here. So we're not gonna have two parallel facilities. We're just gonna have either, they're just gonna integrate into each other. So, and then for the intersections, I am actually not sure for which intersections they have proposed an improvement yet, Rob, unless you know, but we haven't looked at that in that much detail yet.
Because with this one, again, I fully support the multi-use trail and want to see it connecting to our parks. With intersection improvement, knowing that there's going to be that the express lane bridge, I want to make sure we're not allocating a lot of money right here and committing to doing something that's actually going to increase cut-through traffic through Martin's Landing or anywhere else in the area.
So actually, yeah, now I remember a little bit. So first off, we're not talking about roadway widening. We're only talking about intersection improvements. I actually remember seeing a roundabout. We're talking about a couple of intersections that have known issues, and it would probably include the the old ASAN company site as well. I remember seeing one full roundabout and a couple of mini roundabouts for analysis purposes. So it's not defined yet. And once we are gone through the public involvement, it'll come to committee for you to approve the scope. But we are not there yet. But this is kind of what we are thinking. So, it's the corridor will have at least one roundabout as part of the Historic Gateway project. So more roundabouts along this corridor, that's what deters the the through traffic, basically. And of course, roundabouts are good at calming the speeds. So that's what I have seen so far, but that's not final. Public has not seen it. You have not seen it. So we are, we're not there yet.
Additional comments, questions from council? Okay, let me reiterate. What I'm going to do is we're going to take a vote on each item, but then I'm going to ask for a final vote because we don't know what this final list is going to look like until we ferret through these issues. So this is not the final vote. I just need a hands up, hands down on whether or not you want to keep number 6 above the red line. And do I need a motion for that, or can I just do a straw poll? I'll just do a straw poll. So all of those in favor of keeping number 6 above the line, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. I would like to point out we are missing Councilmember Zapata. So then we'll move on to number 8. And this was, I anticipate some conversation on this one. So Councilmember Wilsey, you have questions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess my question about this one is, are you confident that those funds have been wrapped into number 1, which is number 4 on this list?
Yeah, yes. So that's what I said at the
Right.
beginning.
Right.
So Mayor, the project number 8, as I suggested, we were gonna, so the project number 8 got merged into number 1 based on the scope changed council made at the committee. So we could just delete the project number 8 actually. It got merged into number 1, just down there.
And does that change the dollar amount?
We just removed this dollar amount and it's already taken into account into the $10.5
Okay, so,
million numbers.
so we can just pull out 8?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Councilmember Tyser, did you have any questions about this item? Is there anybody else? Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, Mayor Henry, I just wanted to confirm that that does free up $1.4 million for the discussion.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Straw poll again. All those in favor of keeping this above the red line, please raise your hands.
Keeping which one?
Well, number 1, number 6, number 8 combines to number 6. And if we combine it with, we had a straw poll to keep in number 6, but do you want to rescind that and keep in number 8? And that frees up some additional funding over the red line. So, pardon? 8 goes into 1. You're right, right. I'm sorry. 8 goes into 1. I'm looking at different, I keep wanting to go down the list, 1 through 10. Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
So I think you might have just noticed what I actually just noticed. So just as 8 is not necessary because of number 1, is that what you're saying? Is number 6 and number 10, are those?
So number 6 and number 10 are different. Number 6 is Riverside Road from Riverside Park to Old Alabama.
Oh, okay, yep, thank you.
Yeah, number 10 is elsewhere. So number 8 basically goes away. So I can go to number 10, which is Old Alabama Road multi-use trail from Market Boulevard to Holcomb Woods Parkway. And we are talking, a bike ped improvement project at $2 million. So number 10, project number 10.
Okay, so let's be clear. Number 8 is no longer on this list. So if we had a great big huge red marker, we would just swipe through it right now. Okay. So now we're on to 10. And does anybody have any questions regarding that? Straw poll, all those in favor of keeping it above the red line? And that's 4-1. Thank you. Councilmember Wilsey, not in support. Yeah, it's unanimous. Okay, then the next item, okay, so we've discussed number 1. Do we need to discuss number 1 again? Okay, I think we're clear. Okay, so then we go on to number 47.
Yeah, that's the recreational and park project, the Chattahoochee River Parks multi-use trail, riverfront park from Willio Road to Georgia 400.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Straw poll, all
Actually,
those in,
wait, I have a
yes,
question.
Councilmember Palermo?
Now, Mayor Henry, you had brought up on the delete slide, one that you brought up being a Parks and Rec item and there had perhaps being other funding potentially. Was that this one or was that a different one?
That was,
Number 48.
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this one, all those in favor, straw poll, and it's unanimous. Thank you. On to the next item, Mr. Ralph.
Number 3 is the Holcomb Bridge Road median islands, the various locations for small medians between Old Alabama and Barnwell Road.
Does council have any questions? Councilmember Tizer?
Director Ralph, how do you feel, do you feel comfortable that it can be fit into the 2022 budget? As Councilmember Hall has proposed?
So, well, that's way beyond me at this time. We are talking about the, I mean, I know transportation didn't get most of their requests funded. So I'm not sure where the money's coming from this in the FY22, so I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wilsey?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So question, the map that you showed us had multiple possibilities for where the medians could go, correct?
Yes.
And I imagine that the $500,000, it funds 2 to 4 of them, you
4
said.
medians, yes.
2 to 7. So I would suggest that we keep this item here in the TSPLOST list and that we discuss whether or not funding it this year is possible or not. And that way, if both get funded, then we're able to fund more medians.
Additional questions, comments from council? Straw poll, who's in favor of leaving this above the red line? And it's Judy, Wilsey, and Iffy Tizer.
You know, if it could get into.
And all those opposed? Councilmember Hall and Councilmember Palermo. And I'm really torn on it myself, but I think my vote on a straw poll would be to leave it in. So this one is just by a narrow margin. So that might be something that we look at again once we flesh out all of these projects. So go on to the next one, please.
Next one would be the number 49. That's a Norcross Street bridge replacement over Hogwaller Creek at $4.2 million. So it's a bridge replacement project.
Thank you. I would like to pipe up that these bridge projects are very, very, very important. They're very expensive projects that are difficult to fund through other sources. So do we have other comments, questions from council? Straw poll? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Next one up would be number 11, Old Alabama Road multi-use trail from Holcomb Woods Parkway to Big Creek Park entrance at $640,000.
Council have any questions? Straw poll, who would like to leave it above the red line? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
The next one up would be the Pine Grove Road corridor improvement, the part closer to Cobb County at $7.9 million.
Council have any questions? Straw poll, who would like to leave it above the red line? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Next one up would be the Big Creek Park boardwalk replacement project inside Big Creek Park. That's the other recreational and park project.
Thank you. And Councilmember Palermo, that's the one I suggested going to other revenue sources for it. We've got a lot of opportunities for recreation and parks. We don't have a lot of opportunities for transportation projects. So anybody have any questions on that item? Yes, Councilmember Judy.
I guess this would probably be for Director Leatherman. Sorry to pull you from the seats, but do you foresee the ability to go after some money on this, be a grant or other sources other than this, or will this just kind of leave a hole that we can't fill?
So we don't have anything specifically identified that fits within this, a funding source that we would put our finger on. We know that there's going to be infrastructure money that's coming forward in the next round of federal funding. There's likely going to be trail money or other types of money. I think the challenge with this one when it comes to park and facilities is that we always struggle to find money for maintenance. We generally can find money for new construction within the parks world. It's difficult to find money to maintain existing infrastructure facilities. So we would be looking for something that is more, I would say, transportation infrastructure related, as opposed to a park facility in this case.
Additional questions from council?
Can I follow up
Yes,
that question?
Councilmember
Sorry,
Judy.
I know you're looking through prisms here.
Yeah.
Can we move this to a tier 2, tier 3 project? Obviously, should we come up with the money?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an eligible project per legal, so yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Palermo.
So I will be, based on the discussion that the mayor raised and Mr. Leatherman and Mr. Judy have added to, I'm going to support moving this away from right here. But I guess my question is, for tier 2, is there the ability for us to specify specific projects? I know you're recommending we just say generally, but I'm just wondering if this council at a later time, prior to the vote, could decide to actually name some specific projects.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
One of the other things I would like to point out is, and I anticipate, I'm not going to speak for this council, but I will anticipate that we will go out for a bond after we settle the TSPLOST 2. And as you all know, recreation parks are really sexy projects that float bonds. And this project could be identified in that as well. So we do have the federal funding coming down the pipe. We've got tier 2 and tier 3, but then we've also got the opportunity of a bond. And we're always looking at those park projects that help us to carry that bond. And I think this would be an excellent one because it's in a park that's highly used by the citizens of Roswell. And I think it would be a motivational factor to get folks out to approve a bond on that. So all of those, straw poll, all of those in favor of moving that down below the red line, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item, Mr. Ralph.
The next item would be the Nesbitt Ferry Road. This is, as listed here, is the gap filling project at $1.4 million.
Questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Is this being suggested that we change the amount to $1 million?
And change the scope to corridor improvement project by City of Johns Creek.
Okay, thank
This
you.
is a request from
Johns Creek,
City of Johns Creek, and I think it's a no-brainer in my mind.
thank you.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you. Those were my words exactly. I think, $1 million for $7 million worth of improvements on that corridor is a no-brainer. I think there's a lot of intra-city travel, and for us to be able to have that connectivity and the multi-use path within that area to connects to our schools and parks, it's a very good deal for us. So, thank you.
Yeah, and it's $400,000 less.
Right, and we say $400,000. So,
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. So I think it seems to me everyone was certainly supportive of filling in the sidewalk gaps there. Obviously, I'm very focused on trying to get increased sidewalk connectivity throughout so much of our city. I do want to bring up one aspect and a different way to look at it, though, is, so I will be supporting this, but to be clear, the guidance that we had received from the former transportation director when you were deputy, Mr. Ralph, was that this improvement that Johns Creek really wanted to make was going to just move more traffic to be bumper to bumper on Holcomb Bridge Road. That was what we were told back then. And of course, back then, Johns Creek wanted us to pay 50-50. So they wanted us to pay, I guess if it's 7 million, they wanted us to pay 3.5 million, and they wanted to pay 3.5 million. And the guidance from transportation at the time was that we'd pay 50% for something that was really going to put more traffic and potentially more frustration on Holcomb Bridge Road. So the way that I'm looking at it is they want to pay us $400,000 if we're willing to support them doing this. That's how I'm reading it. And I just want to make sure that RDOT has looked at the downstream impacts to say, yes, it is worth getting the $400,000 to have the potential increased congestion on Holcomb Bridge Road. So I just want to share that and really ask that to staff.
So if I understood the question right, so there is no $400,000 coming from Johns Creek to us?
Correct.
It's just that our project, gap filling project, was going to cost 1.4.
Correct.
If we partner with them at $1 million,
Right.
that gives us a corridor improvement project. And the way this happens, and we have done it before with the city of Johns Creek with an IGA, they paid 100% to improve an intersection in the city of Roswell at Brumbelow and Nesbitt Ferry, right there. So, of course, we are here to protect the, best interest of the citizens and the city of Roswell. So we'd be very involved, and we'll make sure that the city council sees the project as it evolves. It would start by signing an IGA, and we can list all these concerns and all these things that are just not going to be acceptable to us. We will make sure we do that.
But again, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear that you're right, either on our own, we can just say, you know what, we're just going to go fill in some sidewalk gaps there, and we spend 1.4 million, or we're supportive and want to partner with Johns Creek for them to make a corridor improvement, which we only have to give $1 million. So we've now saved $400,000. But again, what the previous discussion was from RDOT was that this corridor improvement was going to create more traffic and more backup onto Holcomb Bridge, because it would get it faster from right there, that intersection, but it would still then just be bottlenecked on Holcomb Bridge Road. That was what former director Asen Brack had walked us through back when there was the recommendation not to move forward with it. Again, I now that they're actually, instead of wanting to split 50-50, they're wanting to actually save us some money. It's a whole different discussion. I just want to make sure this council is aware of the previous discussions.
Well, and I would also like to add to that, number one, as I stated in our previous work session committee meeting, whatever we were in, that this might not be ready for prime time because we really haven't vetted all of the issues. Because I would also like to add to your comment, Councilmember Palermo, that we've got neighborhoods on that corridor that we don't control the street in front of their neighborhood. So, for example, Nesbitt Lakes has hired a police officer to be able to regulate traffic outside of their subdivision. Because we can't control it, we can't place the light there, it's Johns Creek's property. So I just want everybody to keep in mind that if we pull it off of this list, there are other funding opportunities, and there's also the opportunity for us to do a little bit more due diligence and look at what this project would look like to partner with Johns Creek on it. That's simply my suggestion.
So, Mayor, can I clarify something, please? So this map here, this blue dot is the project limit, and then the red line is the city boundary, and anything to the left of the red line is city of Roswell. So the full public right-of-way and the full length from Holcomb Bridge to the Mount Pisgah Church is in the city of Roswell. So the Nesbitt Lake subdivision entrance is in the city of Roswell, and the HOA, yes, they hire, a cop because it's hard, and that's one of the intersections that gets looked at. So what the whole deal is, City of Johns Creek basically offering to spend, $6 million with a $1 million match in the city of Roswell right away. I think we discussed this before. In the past, another conversation was Roswell, give us the right of way so we could do whatever we want and we control. That's the confusing part. So that's not a recommended way, so we didn't even.
Thank you, and that's where I got confused, because our discussion was the fact that Johns Creek wanted us to relinquish right-of-way to them,
That's how it
and
started.
that is not a good idea, because then we
Yes.
would have right-of-way outside of our subdivisions that we don't control. So,
Exactly,
thank you,
yes.
and I apologize for misspeaking and misleading folks. So, all of those in the straw poll that would like to leave this above the red line, please raise your hands. And it is Palermo, Hall, Tizer, Wilsey, all those opposed, and Judy. So you're good.
So, yeah, leave this above the red line and make it $1 million and do the
Right.
partnership. Okay, thank
Right.
you.
So,
Excuse me. Yes, Councilmember Palermo?
I mean, Mayor Henry, I guess your points, though, I think still carry here. So again, I want to see these sidewalk gaps filled, but before we're giving, basically signing away all leverage for the $400,000, I would prefer to make sure that we really understand what the impact is to Holcomb Bridge Road and see if there's any ways to make sure we have actually a say to make sure that traffic's gonna be best for Roswell people and not just making it worse on Roswell people.
And I would agree with you, Councilmember Palermo. Like I said before, I don't think this one's ready for prime time on TSPLOST 2 just because of the condensed time frame. And we haven't been in discussions with Johns Creek. Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Palermo. From what I've seen in the conversations that I've had with Director Ralph and with some folks in Johns Creek, I think the scope of this project may have changed from what was discussed several years ago. Again, and just looking on the map, I mean, this is a much longer corridor with quite a few intersections that could use some improvement, as well as the multi-use paths. So I imagine, as we said, there will be lots more discussions with Johns Creek going forward about the MOU and what the benefits are to us. So again, I would just love to see us continue those conversations, and I think it could potentially be a win-win for both cities.
Here's my concern, Councilmember Wilsey. We're going to go to the public and ask them to vote to self-tax for projects that you and I can't justify yet because we don't have the information we need to get that to the public. Once again, this is a very compressed schedule.
Right.
And I don't want to be in a position where somebody asks me about this project, Nesbitt Ferry, and my response is, I don't know. So, Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, I would just suggest that getting that public input would also be an important piece of the puzzle.
Well, it always is, but
which
it's
we will
whether
get
the
through
public
this-
input
which
is
we will
part of
get
this
through this
project,
conversation.
TSPLOST 2, or it's separately from this, so.
Right.
But I believe the straw poll was that we would keep it in, and hopefully we can justify it. Okay, the next item, please.
The next one would be project number 46, the Holcomb Bridge Road multi-use trail along Holcomb Bridge from Martin Landings to Eves Road along Holcomb Bridge in the public right-of-way at $2.8 million.
Questions from council? I'll go for straw poll. All those in favor of keeping it above the red line? And it's unanimous. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just, for the general public or anybody watching, these plexiglass things between us are a little bit like a three-way mirror in a dressing room, and I have a little trouble seeing. So Councilmember Hall was not in support. Thank you. The next item
Is the project number 65, the Old Ellis Road extension from Sun Valley Road to Old Ellis Road. It's a new connection at $16.7 million.
Questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Hall.
I would just like to say that I do support this project, but I would support the 10 to 12 million for the row acquisition as part of the TSPLOST. Right away.
So Councilmember Hall would like to stipulate that she supports Old Ellis Road with the stipulation that it only include right-of-way acquisition.
And that comes at up to $6 million. The 10 to 12 is really for the construction.
Okay, so what we would be approving instead of 16.7 million would be 6 million.
Yes.
Additional questions from council? All those in favor of leaving that above the red line at 6 million, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Okay, so we've got a pretty good picture so far, right? Now we've got to look at anything that from below the red line that we want to move up.
Yes, so we had those slides, so we could go, this was just a clarification.
And
Yeah.
could you also, I realize you guys aren't the finance department.
Today, yes.
However, could you give us an idea how much money we're playing with the changes we made above the red line?
It's working? I think so. Good evening, Mayor. Based on the motions and the straw polls you just passed, with no other changes and with no other adds coming from the list you talked previously about, with $10 million in program management and project contingency, we are sitting at $56.6 million, which gives us a number of approximately 17 that we would still be able to add and come in under 73.
Okay, so we do have the opportunity to raise some projects above the red line. And I'm sorry, my brain didn't go back that far. Let's see, we've got Pine Grove, I believe, Old Ellis Gateway, HBR.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
So what we had here was blue project closer to Cobb County is already above the red line. So the red project, that's the piece closer to Canton Street from Mimosa Boulevard to Lake Charles, is currently below the red line.
And what's the estimate on that?
Yeah, $6.9 million.
Okay,
Motion to move that above.
so I didn't ask for a motion. We're not having motions. We're having straw polls. I would like, is there anybody that would like to make comments, questions on council? Okay, so those of you that would like to raise this above the red line, please raise your hands. And Councilmember Wilson, yeah, it's unanimous.
Okay, so the next one would be the historic gateway, the possible short fall of $2 million, where we may have a possible grant opportunity for this $2 million, but the only point is it's a must-pay bill in about 2 years' time.
Okay, this is non-negotiable. It is a must-pay bill. So those that are in favor of moving it above the red line, please raise your hands. And I don't see a single one. So I'm thinking that's not going. Would anyone like to make a comment? Yes, Councilmember Palermo?
So my comment is similar to the 5 million contingency, that I don't feel we should be going and basically asking to be bailed out on previous projects. So even at TSPLOST 1, there was opportunity to raise more, and basically the guidance at the time was that actually there was other funding coming, GDOT, ARC, et cetera. So again, I don't support this for TSPLOST 2.
Thank you, Councilmember Tizer.
Thanks. I'm gonna veer just a second because Councilmember Palermo mentioned it. I agree that I wouldn't want to see this one because I think we have other sources of funding for it. On the other $5 million that Councilmember Palermo mentioned, I'd like to clarify that that's the spur of the Big Creek project that we added subsequent to TSPLOST 1 that connects to Warsaw Road. And so as we discuss that later, that's what we'll be discussing, I believe.
Thank you, Councilmember Tizer, and I would also like to object to the word bailout. Additional comments from council? Okay, so we're still at moving that, staying below the line. Yes. Okay, next item.
The next item would be project number 50, Oxbow Road Bridge Replacement at $3.2 million, and that is also a must-pay bill within the next 5 years.
Questions, comments from council? Once again, I would like to reiterate that while bridges aren't sexy projects, they're necessary projects. And if we ever get to the point where we have to close one of these bridges because we can't repair it, we don't have the funding for it, we're all gonna catch heck because of the traffic that it causes. So my suggestion would be to move it up, but is there any support to move this above the red line? Councilmember Tizer and Councilmember Judy. Those that don't support moving it above the red line would be Hall and Palermo and Wilsey. Okay, so it stays down. Next item.
Next one would be the partnership request from the city of Milton at up to $1 million to improve 2 intersections that are located in the city of Milton.
Council comments, questions? Yes, Councilmember Hall.
Director Ralph, when we've done projects like this, have they been typically just funded out of annual budgets in the past?
So
Is this a typical thing that you'd see in TSPLOST?
So such partnership requests, for projects that are on the city boundary line, it's half of our residents who are complaining to us and them, and it's half of their residents. So these projects are hard to fund, in one city's, general budget process. So this is a good opportunity. And, the regional projects, I think they are helpful in, having more people support. So if we ever want to do this partnership with the city of Milton, I think this is a good opportunity to do that.
Additional comments, questions from council? All those in favor of moving this up above the red line, please raise your hands. And it's Wilsey, Hall, and Tizer. All those opposed? Palermo, Judy, and Henry. So that's a tie vote. So let's leave it. We can always come back to it. And is there another project that we might recommend moving above the red line?
So this list, the add delete list on the screen, we took care of some of it, but not all for the council vote.
And which ones did we not take care of?
So first one got taken care of, Pine Grove. The next one would be number 2, which is the project number 39, Hog Wallow Creek Trail at $2.45 million.
Okay, does council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, my question is, what are the remaining funds? Can you give us an update? Okay. Do we? We don't have that much.
Currently, we are at 63.4 million, which would leave us a gap of approximately $10 million.
And the other decision we need to make is whether or not we're going to include project management, and the other $500,000 was to fill the gap on the TSPLOST 1 projects, Tier 1, correct?
Yes, although
Or,
the.
sorry, 5 million.
Yes, although Rob, as he mentioned at the beginning, he already included those two at full amounts, but of course, we can always.
But if we reach the 63, that leaves us the 10, correct? Or in addition to that?
The $10 million current gap includes $5 million funding for program management and $5 million funding for project contingency.
Okay, so we still have $10 million that we can move above the red line.
That's correct.
Okay. So we're getting somewhere. I realize it's, we're just pecking away at this, and we've only got a few minutes. Let me ask you this, Mr. Ralph, I'm promoting you. What I would like to suggest to council is that you all draw up the new list that we've agreed on tonight, we've given you direction on, and then under the red line, just rank them by the previous ranking by council. And then, unless you all want to try to move them up above the red line tonight, we've got 5 minutes. Councilmember Hall.
I would just like to clarify that we have $10 million plus another $10 million that's the 5 and the 5, so there's $20 million to discuss.
Yes, sounds like it, Rob. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we need to get the addition of the Warsaw Road Big Creek Spur in here. It's something that was passed subsequent to, or, after TSPLOST 1. We've approved it, we've drawn it, we've had public opinion, we've done all that. So if that's what that $5 million is for, then I think we need to fund it, because we've told our citizens that we're going to build it and promised them we were going to build it.
Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, building that piece is a certain requirement. That's what we all agreed upon. I think the matter is that should that be a part of TSPLOST 2 or not? But I actually think we're real close here and wanted to discuss a little more. Where I just want to mention for item number 2, I'm not able to support that tonight because I'd want to see from staff exactly where that is, what roads are near, and really the impact to the residents, but it's something that's interesting. But I definitely see multiple projects on this list that I feel could get funded with that 10 million, which would still allow some contingency and I think a good opportunity for some good projects.
Councilmember Palermo, I appreciate your sentiments. I believe we took a straw poll to direct staff on these items. So to change them at the request of one council member would be inappropriate. However, what I'd like to see, and Councilmember Tizer brought up a good point on what he was talking about, which would narrow the gap by 5 million more. And would anyone support, would you restate that, Councilmember Tizer?
The Big Creek Spur that connects to Warsaw Road that we added.
The Big Creek Spur that connects to Warsaw Road that we added into the Big Creek Parkway. Is there anyone on council that would like to see that above the red line? Please raise your hands. We've got Tizer.
I'm confused, it's already on there.
Mr. Ralph, is that project already above the red line?
So it just depends, like the number that Rob is mentioning, he's incorporating the $5 million for TSPLOST 1 contingency, which is really just the extension of Big Creek Phase 2 to Warsaw. So he has already included that, but the clarity that Councilmember Hall just requested, she said that we have $20 million to play with, so that would not be true. We have to reduce $5 million out of that.
On it.
Thank you. Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you. Let me just clarify. I want to make sure that we have specifically spelled out what that 5 million is, that it's not TSPLOST 1, it's the spur that we approved later, and this is a place to fund it. So that's what I'm proposing for our approval this evening. I think it's important enough that we get it done tonight.
So are you proposing we keep 5 million in contingencies for T-SPLOST-1 in addition to the 5 million for this project?
No, the contingency that he put in for T-SPLOST-1 actually is this spur.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
So it really, it can be, I stand by that, that contingency could be anywhere in the sense that we've got Oxbow, we've got Big Creek Park, we've got Gateway, we've got a lot of T-SPLOST-1 projects. But that being said, I think we're getting off track. I think we've got $10 million that's left, which even fully includes that contingency. And we've got barely more than $10 million worth of projects here. And so I definitely want to see this council really doing our work, representing and walking through, finishing up that list. We've gotten this close. I'd hate to see us not come to agreement and not work together for the residents on this.
Well, and I think what we've got is a disagreement on verbiage, because I understand what Councilmember Tyser's saying, which is that project, we added that in post T-SPLOST-1. So while it's a T-SPLOST-1 project, it's not necessarily a T-SPLOST-1 contingency project that we are required to complete. So, for example, we could, as a council, decide not to connect that road to Warsaw if we did not have funding. It's not part of the T-SPLOST project, correct?
So that's gonna need some clarification. So remember, Mayor, initially, before the realignment that we did to partner with GDOT, the project actually went all the way to Warsaw and just followed a different alignment. But as part of the realignment and the deal with GDOT, we very, very clearly stated staff's recommendation was to bring it down and end the Big Creek Parkway project at Holcomb Bridge. And that's what all the estimates were based on. But per council's direction, we added the Warsaw connection at the time of the realignment.
Well, and so now I'm getting confused again, because the scope of the project was to go from Old Alabama to Norcross. Now, it doesn't say how we get to Norcross. So it could come to Old Holcomb Bridge Way, to Holcomb Bridge, to Norcross, correct?
Warsaw, yes.
Or Warsaw, I'm
Yes.
sorry. So we don't have to complete that T-SPLOST-1 project with it going directly through and staying off of Holcomb Bridge Road to Warsaw, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in my mind, it's actually a separate project. It's not a T-SPLOST-1 contingency, and I would agree with Councilmember Tyser that we have created a separate project because we can fulfill T-SPLOST-1 by putting traffic onto Holcomb Bridge. I'm not recommending that. I support it the way we have it. So I would suggest that that project be delineated from a contingency project. I don't know what else we have in contingency that are lined up for it. But, and I would also like to suggest that we compile what we've accomplished this evening and get that back to council. And when do you need a formal vote on this?
So, we were hoping for it to be tonight so we could go out to public in a couple days.
Well, we can't vote in a work session, so.
So what we could do is this list that we see, all the ads from the council, we could just send that whole list to the public with everything that you have already agreed to keep on the list and these ad requests. So maybe we'll have 30 projects, around 30. We'll send those out to public and see what they think on the overall, the 30 project list. So maybe that'll help the council make the decision at the committee in a couple of weeks would be the next opportunity.
Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent. To be, our discussion when we changed the scope of Big Creek Park, the big discussion was the fact that we committed to the residents of East Roswell and really all of Roswell, that it would connect the east side to Warsaw. And that's why there was not going to be support to change Big Creek Park if it didn't connect to Warsaw. So this is not a separate project. This is Roswell keeping its word, which is important for instilling trust. So I think there's debate on whether or not there should be the contingency, and that's fine, and I think actually there's a lot of opportunity for compromise, and I hope to see this council become unanimous and work together on this, but to try to change definitions and change what we defined as that whole scope of the project, I don't think is the best process for really requesting taxpayers to vote on another TSPLOST.
Thank you. I believe that Councilmember Tyser, we're out of time here. We're out of time.
Anything else?
You can speak.
You said we're out of time. I'll have that discussion if you want, one-on-one, Councilmember Palermo. But I think if you go back and listen to the meetings, that particular piece was unfunded. And staff asked us to find a funding source for it. And that's why I'm proposing that become a funding source in this project, or in this referendum as a separate part of the project.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyser. We are adjourned.